Hello, everyone, and welcome to Invertebrate Investigations by Butterfly Pavilion. My name is Kayla, and I am very excited to be here with a special guest. Um, I have a cute little tarantula. I am going to go ahead and show you to her. She's been working on some home renovations, and so she keeps going into her little house to hide. So just in case she decides to hide at the end of the program, we're going to go ahead and take a look at her. This is Goldie. Hopefully my camera will focus. There we go. So this is Miss Goldie the tarantula. She is one of our ambassador tarantulas here at Butterfly Pavilion. She is a Chaco golden knee tarantula, native to Argentina. And this girl, we don't know her exact age, but I'm going to guess based on her size, she's at least 12 years old. So hopefully she will let us look at her at the end of the program, but just in case she decides to go back into her little tunnel and work on some of that digging she's been working on. Just wanted to make sure that we all got to see her beforehand. So once again, welcome everyone. Just a few housekeeping notes. You are going to be muted and your cameras are off. This is in webinar form. However, we do have a Q&A option if you have any questions or comments during the presentation. If you are on mobile or on a tablet, you do have to tap the screen to get the options to come up for Q&A. And if you're on a desktop computer, you do need to bring your mouse over, just to hover over so that you can see that. I also, just for full disclosure, I am recording this and it will be available on our YouTube channel, hopefully by the end of the day. So here at Butterfly Pavilion, of course, as the name suggests, we do have butterflies, but for the month of October, we let the spiders take over. We are all about spooky season here at Butterfly Pavilion, and we love the spiders. We love the spiders. So if you're not familiar with us, we are an invertebrate zoo. We are located in Westminster, Colorado, just north of Denver, if you're not sure where we're at. And again, we are an invertebrate zoo, which means we highlight animals with no backbones. So invertebrates do make up 97% of all animal life on Earth, and they can be found everywhere. They can be found at the tops of mountains, they can be found at the bottom of the ocean, and they can be found right in your own backyard. Potentially this time of year, with it getting chillier, they may even come in the house with you because they're looking for a warm space. So you may see some of those little critters coming in. Most of them are going to be harmless. You can coexist with them just fine. But today we are focusing on spiders. I am a huge spider fan. So let's go over first, what is a spider and what makes a spider a spider? And then we're going to go over some common ones you may see, at least if you are based in the United States. We'll go through some of my favorites. And then at the very end, we'll come back to Miss Goldie and we'll take a look at her. I don't think she's going to let me hold her. I did try earlier and she let me know that she would prefer to not be touched. I may try again. We'll see how she's feeling, but no promises that I'll get to hold her, but at a minimum, we'll get to look at her on the camera. So spiders are arachnids. So all spiders are arachnids, but not all arachnids are spiders. So arachnids include things like ticks and mites, harvestmen or daddy longlegs. So if you see a daddy longlegs, they're not actually spiders, they're just cousins to spiders. Scorpions, things like camel spiders, and then of course our spiders. And no matter what type of spider you're looking at, whether it's a tiny one or a big tarantula like Goldie, they are going to have all the same basic anatomy. So spiders do have two primary body segments. They have the cephalothorax, which is going to be like the center disc of their body. It's basically like their head and their chest have sort of fused together. So their eyes are located on their cephalothorax. This is where their brains are located and where their legs connect to their body. And then the abdomen, that's going to be the kind of the backside of the spider. That's going to be where the majority of their organs are located. Spiders also, in addition to having 8 legs, also have 2 smaller limbs called pedipalps. Now on a tarantula, on the screen we're looking at a tarantula, those pedipalps may be about half the length of their normal legs. Depending on the spider though, they may just look like little teeny tiny T-Rex arms. And they can be really small on certain spiders, so sometimes they're not always easy to see. But these pedipalps, they are kind of like little arms. They help them hang on to their food, help them feel for things. They also use them for communicating with other spiders. And in certain species, they also play a reproductive role as well. And then, of course, we have the eyes up on top. Depending on the type of spider and the type of hunter that they are, the eyes may be up on the top of the cephalothorax, or they may have kind of migrated forward to actually face forward like a face. Not all spiders have 8 eyes, though they do usually have an even number. They can have 8, 6, 4, or even just 2. And the majority of spiders actually don't have great vision. There are a few exceptions, and we'll look at those in a moment. But most spiders, they can't see very well, despite the fact that they have multiple eyes, more eyes than we do. Their mouth parts are called chelicerae. So you can kind of see, at least on a tarantula, they're fairly large, and they are tipped in those hollow fangs. And their fangs are how they deliver their venom. That's how they are able to eat their food. The venom, in addition to subduing whatever their prey is, it is also going to start the process of liquefying that animal. Spiders don't have teeth to chew, so they have to get creative on how they ingest their food. So their venom will start to kind of break down whatever animal they're eating, and kind of turns it into an insect smoothie so that they can then slurp it up and eat their food. And then finally, we do have spinnerets as well on the backside of the spider. Again, depending on the species and the type, these spinnerets may be very obvious and visible, like they are on a tarantula, or they may be really close to the body and even difficult to see. All spiders do have the ability to make silk, but not all of them make webs, and not all of them use their silk for catching food. So again, we'll look at kind of some of the differences in the different types of spiders, but all of them do have the ability to make silk. Now, spiders are an incredibly diverse group of animals. So despite having kind of all the same building blocks, the same body parts, they can be incredibly diverse. They may be kind of plainly colored. They may be super, super colorful. If we look down in the bottom left here, we've got the peacock jumping spider, those gorgeous, gorgeous colors. They may be an animal that lives in a web, like your orb weavers. Or they may prefer to hunt on the ground and not rely on silk to catch their food. They also can be as teeny tiny to sit on the pad of your finger, or they may be the size of a dinner plate. If we look in the middle bottom row right here, we've got a Goliath bird eater. These are the largest spiders in the world. Not going to run into these unless you're running around the rainforests of Brazil, but they can get up to about 10, 11 inches in diameter. So incredibly diverse animals. And that's one of the things I love about them is they have really adapted to live in just about every environment on Earth. We can find them on every continent except the poles, and they inhabit a lot of different environmental niches. So we're going to go through a couple different types. Again, these are going to be pretty common ones to see in the United States, though if you're watching from elsewhere in the world, you potentially will see these types of spiders as well. So up first, I have possibly the cutest group of spiders, and that is the jumping spiders. So they are having a little bit of a moment. They are currently very popular as pets. If you type in jumping spider into Instagram or YouTube, you'll find all sorts of great photos and videos of these little cuties. And I have found, at least in my experience, even people who maybe aren't super keen on spiders like jumping spiders. So I think part of it is their large eyes. They have very, very large eyes and have the best eyesight of any of our spiders. And so because they have such good eyesight, they are vision-based hunters. And they tend to have compact, fuzzy bodies. They don't get very large. The biggest one is maybe the size of a quarter. So they tend to be pretty small, but very fluffy. And they can be very colorful as well. And there are over 6,000 described species of jumping spider found across the globe. So those are ones that have been scientifically named. So we know enough about them to assign them a scientific name. There are probably many, many more that we don't know enough about to name them or haven't even discovered them yet. And some common jumpers, at least in the United States, we have, if you're based in Colorado, we have the Apache jumpers. They have these, black bodies with red or orange coloration on their cephalothoraxes and their abdomens, and they actually are velvet ant mimics. Velvet ants, if you're not familiar with them, they do have an extremely painful bite. And so these little Apache jumpers are mimicking them so that they look like something much more dangerous than they are. A bite from a jumper, if they even manage to bite you, they do have pretty small fangs, is not going to be serious at all. And again, biting is pretty rare. Like you would have to really be messing with this spider to get them to bite you. Some other common ones across the US are the bold jumpers, the regal jumpers, and zebra jumpers. Regals and bolds are very popular as pets because they are a little bit larger. They do tend to habituate very well to humans. They will interact with you. And while spiders don't quite form emotional bonds the way a dog or a cat will, they will come to know their keepers, and will learn their schedules and whatnot. So as far as spiders go, they can be a fairly interactive pet. And then zebra jumpers, I'm seeing a ton of these right now in Colorado. Kind of at the end of summer, early autumn, lots of grasshoppers are coming out. And so we're seeing, at least at Butterfly Pavilion, a lot of jumping spiders coming out because they love to eat grasshoppers. Now, there are lots of things to love about jumping spiders, but one of my favorite facts is based on a 2022 study on jumping spiders. They go through REM sleep, just like humans do. So because their eyes are so large, we have been able to study them and observe that they go through that rapid eye movement sleep stage, just like humans do. And so in humans and other mammals, the REM sleep stage is when we are dreaming. And so while there is no real way that we can confirm that jumping spiders dream, at least this rapid eye movement state does suggest that they possibly could. So I think that's just incredible to think about tiny little spiders dreaming just like humans do. And whether they dream or not, they also make these adorable little like sleeping bags or cocoons when they settle in for the night. They tend to move around very frequently, but they will spin like a little silk cocoon for them to snuggle up in and have a safe place to sleep for the night. So jumpers, very cute. Definitely recommend researching them more if you're interested. And if you're thinking about maybe getting into spiders as a pet, they are a really great place to start because their care is fairly simple. And they're really interactive and fun. So for anyone who is thinking about getting a spider as a pet, instead of jumping straight into a tarantula, which may be just a little more complicated, definitely recommend jumping spiders. All right, up next, I have the orb weaving spiders. So these are the spiders that make these gorgeous, intricate webs. If you're familiar with Charlotte's web, Charlotte was an orb weaver. And while I have not observed any of them stitching words or phrases into their silk, they do make some really, really beautiful webs. So, they can be very large, intricate webs, but these spiders do have very poor eyesight. So instead, they're going to rely on the hairs on their body and their silk to transmit movement to them. So they can feel when something comes into their web, and based on the size of those vibrations, they can kind of tell, right? Is it something big? Right? Is this something I need to run away from? Or is this a small, tasty bug that is going to be a great lunch for me? They can be in a wide range of sizes. Some of them may be about the size of a dime, all the way up to your giant golden orb weavers of Southeast Asia that again can be probably about small dinner plate size with leg span. Their bodies are very, very small, but they have super long legs. And across the world, we have about 3,000 described species. So again, very, very common spiders. So here in the US, again, you can see your yellow garden spiders or your banded garden spiders. We also have cat-faced spiders, which I think are just adorable. If you look at their abdomens right here, it does look a little bit like a cat face. They also have these little points on their abdomens that look like little kitty ears. So when you see one in real life, you can definitely tell how they get their names. And then in the bottom right, these are going to be much more common in like the Southeast area of the United States, but spiny orb weavers. And she's very small. This is a pretty small spider. Again, we're probably looking maybe nickel size, maybe quarter size. And these spines look very, very intimidating, but they're actually not a dangerous spider to humans. But she is trying to look like something much more dangerous than she is, so that predators will leave her alone. So again, if you ever see one of these, I know they look a little intimidating with those red spikes, but they are completely harmless to humans and are actually going to be great pest control for you. So I always recommend if you see any of these spiders out in your garden or in your yards, thank them for the work that they are doing, because they are going to take care of flies, gnats, mosquitoes, other pest bugs, and they're really, really fun to observe as well. They will usually remake their webs every night, and so you can always go out and watch them and observe them making their beautiful silk artworks. All right, another common spider to see. Now, this one's usually not quite as popular, but I have recently fallen in love with them, and that is the wolf spider. So again, these do tend to be fairly large spiders, so they can be a little intimidating, but again, a great spider to have around your home. They also, if you look at this photo, you may notice her abdomen looks really, really funny. That is because she has hundreds of little babies that she is carrying around on her back. Spiders in general are not the best parents. They tend to lay their eggs, and then if they do any sort of young care, it's maybe a week. Wolf spiders, though, they will transport their babies around on their back. Sometimes people see this and they're like, what is going on with this spider? It's got like these growths on it. It's just a mom carrying her babies around. So if you're lucky enough to catch one of these mama wolf spiders with all her little ones on her back, be sure to take lots of pictures, because I have never seen this in the wild, despite going and looking for them. But I would love to see that. So wolf spiders, again, they have very strong eyesight, and you can see that again with their forward-facing large eyes. They also have a very distinctive eye pattern. So they'll have their two primary eyes, we look right there, another set kind of off to the side that's going to give them peripheral vision, and then a little row of 4 smaller eyes up underneath. So these are sometimes mistaken for things like grass spiders or hobo spiders, but if you're able to get a close look and see kind of how those eyes are arranged, you can tell it's a wolf spider. And as their name suggests, they were named after the mammal, the wolves, because they chase down their prey. And they are going to be great pest control, again, if you happen to find one in your house or in your yard, especially if you have an issue with like beetles or cockroaches. These spiders are going to be great for you to have around, because they can chase down a cockroach, they can chase down beetles and other things like that. And so they're always good to see. I have seen a handful of male wolf spiders. They tend to be kind of small, but I've had some male wolf spiders coming into my house, and because it's getting cold outside. And so I've just been relocating them to my houseplants. That's a good place for them to live, a nice safe place where they'll be out of the way, but they can still have a nice warm space to hang out. And there are about 2,000 described species of wolf spiders. Now, because they are a fairly large brown spider, sometimes they get mistaken for the brown recluse. If you're in Colorado, pretty unlikely that you're going to see a brown recluse, but if you're in the Southeast or the Midwest, you do have established populations there. It's not to say if you're in Colorado or in the Rocky Mountain areas, it's impossible to see one. You know, but if you do, they're not going to have an established population. It potentially rode in on, like, say, a fruit delivery from, say, Georgia or something like that. But when you look at them side by side, the difference is fairly distinct. First of all, your wolf spiders are going to be larger, especially your females. Brown recluse spiders tend to be very small, not very big, very, very skinny bodies, spindly legs. They also aren't quite as hairy. They do have hair on their bodies, but they tend to just at first glance look much smoother. And then, of course, the brown recluses do have this little violin shape on their cephalothorax. Now, again, if you're able to get really, really close to one to look this closely, you know, definitely do be careful around a brown recluse. They do have a nasty bite. However, if you are a healthy adult and you seek medical attention, you will be okay. It's just going to be kind of a painful time. You're going to have a not fun time, but deaths from brown recluse bites are incredibly rare. And usually any sort of complications that come from that are actually secondary infections. Wolf spiders, they do sometimes bite, just because it is a defense mechanism for them. So sometimes if people are like cleaning out a shed or something and stumble across one of these, you may end up with a bite. It's not going to feel great, right? It is still an animal bite, but their venom is not going to be serious for a human. It's probably just going to be itchy and uncomfortable for a couple of days. All right. Now, speaking of other spiders that we probably should give a wide berth if we find one, we don't need to be terrified, but there are ones that we want to give some space, and that is going to be our widow spiders, Now, they are going to be found throughout North America. So they're pretty common, and they do like sort of quiet, dark places. So if you've got one living in your property, it's probably in your garage or your basement, a wood pile, under your deck, something like that. They do have that distinctive coloration, though. They are very easy to identify with their glossy black bodies and that red hourglass um, shape on their abdomens. Sometimes it's not a perfect hourglass. It may just be sort of like a red spot or even just a triangle, but they do have that warning coloration. And they are warning you and other potential predators that they do have a nasty bite and they would like to be left alone. Again, if you're a healthy adult, a black widow bite, you're not going to feel great for a couple days, but there has not been a recorded death from a black widow bite in the United States since the 1980s, early 1980s. So some of that is just our medicine has gotten better. Some of it is education, right? On, knowing that if you've had a potential encounter with a black widow, you do need to go seek medical attention. But again, if you're a healthy adult, extremely unlikely that you're going to have serious complications. And there are over 30 described species of black widows. And here in the United States, we have 5 different types. So just depending on where you are in the country is going to depend on what you're going to see. The southern widows, western widows, and northern widows do look very similar. You also have brown widows, which do have a little bit of different coloration, but the body shape is about the same. And then your red widows, which are going to be pretty much in the southeastern portion of the United States. But all of them do have some rather potent venom. So if you see one, we don't need to freak out or anything. We don't need to panic. But this is one that we want to give some space. And if you do need to relocate one, I definitely recommend putting on just gardening gloves. Their fangs are pretty tiny. They're not going to be able to break through like the leather of say a gardening glove or a work glove. And they are not the fastest spiders either, usually because they are hanging out in their webs if you need to grab a cup or a Tupperware container or something and just gently contain them and move them elsewhere you can. They're pretty easy to do. All right, finally, oh, I had one more picture. So the male black widows are significantly smaller than the females and usually don't get noticed very, very much. So we have some fairly extreme sexual dimorphism going on where the girls are very, very big and have those bright colors, whereas the males are just kind of plain, really, really tiny. They also don't have as potent of venom as well. So most people don't even notice them. I don't think I've ever seen one in the wild. I have seen some here in our collection, but I've never seen one in the wild because they do tend to be really shy. All right, finally, our final category of spiders are going to be tarantulas, which are another one of my favorites. So they do have large fuzzy bodies. Tarantulas do tend to be larger spiders, but they can't see super well. They've got kind of terrible eyesight. So instead they rely on all these hairs on their bodies to help them kind of know what's going on around them, the same way a cat uses their whiskers. They are going to be ambush hunters. So they sit very, very still and wait for prey to come close to them. They don't want to do too much work, really, to get their food. And there are over 1,000 described species. We do have them in the United States, but depending on where you are, you may not see them. So if you're in the Northeast, Midwest area, kind of mid-Atlantic states, probably not going to see them. If you're in the western side of the country or in like Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, you may see them. But they do tend to be pretty shy. They tend to kind of keep to themselves. So what here pictured, I do have some North American natives. Got a Texas brown up top, and then this one right here on the bottom is actually called the Johnny Cash tarantula because of where they're found in California. Tarantulas are an ancient spider, so they are a little bit different from your true spiders. So they are called megalomorphs, and that's going to include tarantulas and trapdoor spiders, where everything else are going to be araneomorphs or your true spiders. The primary difference is their fangs. So your true spiders have fangs that move side to side. So just like on this jumper right here, they're kind of side to side, versus with your megalomorphs, your tarantulas, and your trapdoor spiders, they have fangs that are kind of up and down. So I kind of think more like vampire fangs. And they do tend to keep those fangs tucked up against their body pretty closely. when they're not feeding. And tarantulas are some of the most stunning spiders, in my opinion. I'm probably a little bit biased, but they can be anything from just a gorgeous velvety black. So we have a Brazilian black, South American species right up here. Mexican red knees are very popular as pets because they're super colorful. They also tend to be fairly calm, laid back species. In the bottom left here, we have an Antilles pink toe, an arboreal species. Beautiful coloration, maybe not the best first tarantula if you're thinking about getting one as a pet, just because their behavior can be a little unpredictable, but they are beautiful, beautiful spiders. In the middle here, we have a Brazilian jewel tarantula. They're actually a dwarf species, and so they don't get very large compared to many others, but they do have gorgeous coloration. And then finally, this is a sapphire ornamental, an Indian species. Again, this is not going to be a good first tarantula, but they are super, super beautiful. And then I have been watching Miss Goldie over here, and I'm going to switch the camera really fast because she's actually doing a little bit of digging. She's excavating her space, and I want to get that. I want to get that on camera. So let's switch over and see what Miss Goldie is up to. So she has, you can see she's got a little, it's just off camera. She's got a little flower pot that is actually her house, and she has been working on redecorating. So she's been actually pulling dirt out using her pedipalps and her front legs to carry that dirt out, and then place it somewhere else. And of course, now that I put the camera on her, she's like shy. They're gonna be all shy. Hi, sweet girl. So since she is in the middle of working on her home, I'm not gonna touch her. I'm not gonna try and pick her up. If you're familiar with Butterfly Pavilion, we did used to handle tarantulas with the public, but we have since retired that just because our girls were getting kind of up in age, up in years, and we're not enjoying handling quite as much. But we do still get them out occasionally for programs like this and other educational purposes. I did try to pick her up earlier, and she did kick her back legs at me and reared up a little bit. So she was telling me, no, thank you. I'd prefer not to be messed with today, which is her choice. And that is perfectly fine. No one wants to hold a grouchy tarantula, including me. But again, Goldie here, she is a Chaco golden knee tarantula. Again, you can kind of tell where she gets the golden knee part anyway, those gold stripes on her legs. The Chaco bit in her name, though, does come from the Gran Chaco grasslands of Argentina, where she would be found in the wild, not affiliated with the shoe company in any way, at least that I know of. These are going to be kind of a medium-sized tarantula, not the biggest, not the smallest. She will potentially max out around 7 inches in diameter. Again, when we are measuring tarantulas and talking about their sizes, we are talking with legs fully spread. So I can kind of hold, she's about maybe the size of my palm. I can't really get my hand in there. But with just how she's sitting now, she would pretty much fill my palm. Don't know her exact age. She came to Butterfly Pavilion this year, but she was not born here. So I don't know her exact age, but based on her size, I'm going to guess at least 12. This species, the females can live up to about 25, maybe even 30 years. Males, not going to see them living quite as long, usually maybe 3 to 10, depending on their health and whether they're in the wild or under human care. But I would expect Miss Goldie here to live for at least another decade, maybe longer. She's in great condition. And so assuming she doesn't have any health issues later on down the road, I would expect to have her for at least another decade. This species is pretty common as a pet. They can be, with some practice, they can be handled. However, I do always have to use the caveat that if you are thinking about a tarantula as a pet and you're wanting one that you can hold, I can never promise that you will get one who actually will tolerate being handled. Even amongst your gentler species like Goldie, your Chilean rose hares, your curly hares, your Mexican red knees, they do have individual personalities. And some of them are, will habituate to humans really well, really easily. And some of them prefer to not be touched. But if you are thinking about a tarantula as a pet, she would be a good first species to look into. She's kind of snuggling up snuggling up in the corner there. I think maybe she's ready for a nap after all that digging she's been doing. But she would be a good option potentially if you're thinking about a tarantula as a pet. I would just encourage you that if you do decide to go that route, make sure you do your research. Really great resource, not affiliated with Butterfly Pavilion in any way, but the Tarantula Collective YouTube channel. The gentleman there, he again is not affiliated with Butterfly Pavilion, but he is a hobbyist and has some really fantastic videos for anyone who is thinking about getting into the tarantula hobby. He has great information on good first species, on how to source your spiders, right? Because we want to make sure we get them from an ethical breeder and not someone who is taking them from the wild, as well as setting up like an enclosure and whatnot. Depending on the species, they may have certain humidity needs. Goldie here, she's from, again, the grasslands of Argentina, so she does not need super high humidity. She does have some temperature needs. We definitely want to make sure we're keeping her warm enough. But in her native habitat, you would have some temperature fluctuations. So anyway, again, I'm not seeing any questions coming through, so I will go ahead and wrap it up. I'm running over by just a minute. Thank you all so much for joining me today. And I want to say thank you to Goldie as well. Always appreciate it when my animals let me film them, let me interact with them, even if they're kind of annoyed with me. I do have another one of these programs coming up in November, and I'm just going to double check the date real quick, make sure I don't tell y'all wrong. We are going to be back on November 13th. November 13th. The theme for next month on November 13th, we are going to be looking at the monarch migration. So I won't have any live animals with me, but we're going to be talking all about monarchs and their incredible migration. Also, if you are local and want to come see spiders in person, definitely recommend you do that. We do have our fantastic orb weaver exhibit through October 31st, so only for just another week. We also have a lot of our tarantulas out. We have a huntsman spider out, black widow, a scorpion, and then of course all of our other amazing animals like our butterflies and our ocean animals. So if that is something you're interested in and you happen to be in the Denver area, please be sure to pop in and say hello to our gorgeous spiders. If you are interested in a longer program, a virtual program, if you're a teacher or a daycare worker or anything like that, Butterfly Pavilion does offer virtual programming. We can do arachnid encounters, which is basically just this. We'll look at either Rosie or Goldie and talk about them. But I also have programs on pollinators and other fun invertebrates. So you can always check out our website. It's just www.butterflies.org and go to the education page if you'd like more information about that. So thank you again so much for tuning in this week. This is recorded and I should have it up on the YouTube channel by the end of the day, hopefully. So pop over there if you want to see the recording again or check out some of our other great content. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your Thursday. And I hope to see you next month for the monarch migration invertebrate investigations. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful day. Bye.